down now, calm down, everything's going to be all right. Look at this wonderful array of football shirts we got in here tonight. All sorts of people. Even a Wolves shirt, look. Have you come from Wolverhampton tonight?
Yes.
You have? I like Wolverhampton. I like to have a walk around there. No, I do like walking around. It's not often I feel fashionable. I'm bloody John Paul Gaultier in Wolverhampton. I was watching Richard and Judy the other day. There's a programme and a half. There's a few students' eyes lit up then. They had a phone-in about men who led double lives, men who've got a heterosexual relationship and a gay relationship, right? Obviously, it's a very sensitive subject. And whenever there's a sensitive subject on Richard and Judy, you're always thinking, come on then, Richard. Say the worst fucking thing anyone could ever say. So this bloke, you'd have seen this a couple of weeks ago, some of you. This bloke phoned in, he was clearly upset. I think he was from Manchester, and he said, I've been living with this guy, like, you know, and it turns out like he's got a wife and 2 kids, and I can't go on without him, I love him. I can't. And it was terrible, heart-wrenching stuff. And honestly, Richard made me, right, he said, yeah, I can understand you being upset. So what you don't like is him going behind your back. Oh no, I don't mind that. No, I find you have to be very careful what you're saying on stage nowadays, you know, that you don't upset people. I was in Cambridge a couple of months ago on tour. Weird. Small world, isn't it? Anyway, I was talking about, you know, you get these people who you see walking around who are very, very stooped. You know, people who walk like this. It's a terrible thing, and you see them walking about wherever you go, and you think that's probably born like that, you know, so it's all right to laugh. Because I won't get it, right? I know when I was a kid in Oldbury, right, that was where I grew up, and when I was a little kid in Oldbury, oh yes, and there used to be a bloke like that. We used to pass him on the way to school every morning. And every day he'd be walking down the road, there'd be about 4 or 5 of us. Every fucking day we'd go, you lost something, mate? He loved us, that bloke. So what about this in Cambridge? A bloke at the back shouts, yes, it's called ankylosing spondylitis, actually. I said, is it, Mr. fucking Noel? I said, how come you know so much about it? He said, I've got it. And the audience went, ooh. And I thought, shit. I said, you haven't got it very bad, have you, mate? He said, yes, very bad, actually. And the audience went, oh. And I thought, I've got to try and pull this back. I've got to try and lighten it. And all I could come up with, and this is very poor, right? I said, well, put it this way, mate, you'll probably never stand in dog shit again. Didn't work. A weird thing happened to me. I was doing a gig in London, right, at this place, Covent Garden, and I got heckled by a Japanese bloke. Now, I've never been heckled by a Japanese bloke before. It's a very strange thing, because I was talking and he went, and because I didn't know what he'd said, it was quite hard to come back, you know, to him. And so I thought, I'll chat and we might get something out of it. So I said, are you from Japan, mate? And he said, no. I am from Korea. I said, oh, right. I said, are you from North Korea or South Korea? And he looked at me. He's a businessman, about 50. He looked at me and he went, no. I was joking. Oh, well, I walked right into that one, didn't I? I can't believe I fell for the old pretend you're from Korea joke. Fucking, I've lost it, let's face it. I'm going to do a joke tonight. It was the first joke I ever wrote. I was 12 years old when I wrote this joke. And when I was a kid in Albury, I tell you, it lasted me, just that one joke, for 10, 15 years, right? Every time I turned up, they'd say, here he comes with his fucking joke. And this is it. If anyone here fancies trying this is the joke. All you need is a big nut and bolt, right? Okay. Bloke up there got one in his neck, probably. When I was a kid in Albury, right, kept this in my pocket all the time, right? And what I used to do, I'd go to every fairground in a 10-mile radius. And I'd get on the big wheel, say, or the big dipper. And when we got really up, you know when you're loading up on the big wheel and you're on the top there and it's a bit windy and you're worried, you know, I'd start saying, it's high up, isn't it? Isn't it high up here? Everyone's going, yeah, it is high up. And when they're looking down, you just get the bolt out your pocket. They shit themselves, honestly. It works, still works. I've done it on fucking Eurostar. Right, so, I live in London now. Oh, fucking do ya, yes. And, yeah. Yeah. And I've just remembered why. And, hey, I should tell you this, actually. I did a gig in Bournemouth and I was talking about where people live and stuff. Yeah. You want to go back there, pal? Eh? Fucking... Yeah, back to Bournemouth. That's where you want to fucking go, mate. Hey, I fucking told him. Hey, back to fucking Bournemouth. You're fucking talking about, you twat. So there's this bloke in the second row, and I says, you live in Bournemouth, mate? And he looked up at me like this. He's what they call a mouth breather, you know. A bloke who'd probably heard about breathing through the nose, but thought, why fucking risk it? So I thought, I can't just move on, I've got to talk to him, you know. So I said, you from Bournemouth, mate? And he went, yeah. And I said, so, what's it like here? And he didn't smile or anything, he just looked up and he went, shit. And I actually felt a bit bad about it, because he didn't look very happy, you know. And I said, well, perhaps you should think about moving somewhere else. And I swear, he looked up, like, really confused. And this is what he said. He looked at me and he said, but my house is here. That's why there's people sleeping in shop doorways in London. You said they've come up from Bournemouth, got there and thought, fuck, I forgot my house. So anyway, this was just before the tour started. It was a lovely summer's day, and I'd gone out, right? And it was like lunchtime. All these people had gone out to get a sandwich. There was an office workout I saw. I was in Leicester Square, which, if you don't know it, it's on Monopoly. It's always very crowded in Leicester Square, and this office worker, he got the suit and tie, be a bloke in his early 30s, and what he did, he tripped, right? Not hilarious in itself, but this was what he did. He's walking along and he tripped, he did obviously in a lot of people. He went... But, not only that, right, he managed to top the little run. So he tripped, then he did his little run, but the whole performance went like this. And I thought, now, either that bloke keeps a fucking accurate diary, or maybe he didn't trip at all. Maybe he was walking along there through Leicester Square and thinking to himself, I'm running a bit late today, actually. That's bad. That's put me back on schedule. You youngsters down here, how old are you, mate? 20. Fuck off. I'm not selling fireworks, you can tell me. You're really 20? Really? How old are you? You're 17. What's your name? Luke, okay. Don't be nervous, dear. I'm quite a nice chap. So, Lee, have you started having sexual intercourse yet? You lie to your mates, you might as well fucking lie to me as well. Yeah, okay then. I'll go with it. I'm not going to ask you any big personal questions, so don't panic, okay? Trust me, don't you? Yeah. When you first started, right, the first time, if you didn't, pretend, right? Were you worried it might be over a bit quick? I'm not asking if it was, but were you a bit worried about it? Yeah. That's natural, most blokes. First time I had sex, Lee, I'm not kidding you, it was sort of, oh, thanks very much. I'd still got my fucking Crombie on, right? Bottomed. So that's quite normal, but something that I think most people know that, but something that's not often spoken about, and this is something I've found to be true, as I've got older and older and older, I've found it takes a little bit longer, till now, frankly, it takes too fucking long. I can be going for, say, 40 minutes or so now. 3/4 of an hour, you know, and I'm looking around the room for things to do. I'm thinking things like, I shall get that fucking cobweb later on. And I'll tell you, as I've gone older, sex from behind has been an absolute godsend to me. Because the great thing about sex from behind is that you don't have to look interested. If I'm having sex face to face with a woman, I will put on a bit of a show, you know. For morale more than anything else. I'll be there going... smashing this. And I think women like that. Sex from behind, though, I don't bother, honestly. And I've developed a method now, a sort of a one-legged method, like. So I'm like this. It's not what I'd call a sexual technique. What it is I am a slave to pins and needles. And I've found that if I don't change my pivot regularly, I lose a lot of the sense in my legs, like. Like this bloke has a similar problem. One leg, that's the secret, right? So, it is, you know, it's a problem. And I've found that also, if you, after about half an hour, sometimes the circulation will start to go anyway. And I'm losing a lot of sense in the legs. And then I'll adopt a sort of a Shaking Stevens approach. And that seems to get everything flowing again, right? Let me give you a specific example. I think we know each other well enough now to talk personal. I was having, this has been about 6 months ago, I was having sex from behind, right, with a woman. A woman I regarded very much as an equal. And we'd been going, I would say, about 40 minutes, right? I didn't consult my wristwatch, but I have got a microwave with a digital clock. And I was... By the way, this is her back I'm representing here. Right, not the top of her head. Yeah, I said we'll have sex from behind now, shall we? You little rascal, you. Huh? You know. There was a woman looking at me as if to say, that better be a fucking dwarf joke. So this anyway, we was having sex from behind, right? I can't remember which leg I was on, but trust me, it was one or the other. But I should probably clear up at this point in the story, but when I say sex from behind, right, I mean straight sex from behind. Right? I don't mean... No. I don't mean sex from behind. I don't mean that, right? I wasn't taking a stroll down Cadbury Avenue. Straight sex from behind, right? Let's say main auditorium. Not small, slightly experimental studio theatre next door. Which personally I find more challenging, but it's a cultural difference. Okay. So I say about 40 minutes, and I looked down, in the midst of it, I looked down at her back, you know, and I looked at it and I thought, it isn't just beautiful, her back. It isn't just beautiful. It's perfect. It's fucking perfect, her back. For maybe a mug of tea and an ashtray. Have a coaster down there. Obviously, I wouldn't want to burn anybody. Now, at least... No disrespect in that, of course. I mean, some men, you know, some men during sex are quite aggressive and arrogant. Sex from behind seems to bring out the worst in a lot of men. Now, there are women in here tonight now, I can see you looking at me. And you're with your boyfriends and your husbands, and you're looking at me when I say that, as if to think, not our Jace, though. No, he's not arrogant, he's loving and warm. And romantic. Always rough when he's with the lads, but when he's with me, I see another side. Okay, well, let me put it this way. Every bloke in this room tonight who's had sex from behind, right? Trust me on this, Lee. Every bloke in here who's had sex from behind, right? Occasionally, he does the sex from behind face. You know the one I mean? Now, that's not about love and affection, is it that? And again, I see that woman thinking, oh, not Jace, though. He don't do it. Well, you say that. The telltale sign is when you feel the flat of the palm on your back. That's when he's doing the face. Hey, tell me so they're fucking decorated, would you? All the grudges come out, I tell you. Oral sex, even worse. If you love that man, never ever look up during oral sex. If you see that face looking down at you, that will be it, I'm telling you. That's why they hold your hair, you know. I think I better not let her look up or we'll have to split up immediately. Hey! Hey! Fucking nag me now, will ya? Dearie me. Not me. No, I am quite a gentle lover. I'll admit I have looked down during oral sex on occasion, right? But only to sort of go, oh, how could you? Which is tactically a mistake. If you say it out loud, I think... I heaved once, that was a mistake. It just caught me unawares. I just looked down and went... But it's not just men, right, who are aggressive either. I went out with a woman, right, from Hall Green. And... not using... and she, I'll be honest with you, I was frightened to death of her. She used to treat, honestly, the way she treated me. Our relationship was based on me giving her oral sex. That was it. Occasionally we'd have sexual intercourse. Very, very rarely she'd do oral sex for me. She had to be fast asleep. You know it's a cure for snoring? I found that out accidentally. But I used to get round her house on a night. I'd tell you, I hadn't had a chance to sit down, not offered a cup of tea, nothing. I'd walk through that door, she'd go, fucking lick this now! You know, it doesn't cost anything to say please. And deeper, that was her thing. Deeper, come on, deeper. She got deeper. Well, I've tried, but I don't know if you've ever tried getting a little bit deep. Sometimes it's like you overreach, right? And you feel like you've pulled a muscle in your tongue. Do you know that feeling? She'd be going, come on, deeper. And I'm like, I hit, oh, I'm like, no, hit me. No, hit me. I'll pull them up. She'd be going, deeper, come on, deeper. I could taste the fucking chair. Let's clean things up a little bit. I went to Australia, right? Now, this was... You know, Terry Venables was the manager of England, and then he became the manager of Australia. Just after that, I went to Australia. And I went to a football match out there in Melbourne. And I was standing watching the game. It's a true story. And a bloke came over to me, big Australian bloke, and he said, excuse me, mate, are you from England? Because it was Alf from Home and Away. He said, are you from England, mate? And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, so, what do you make of this Terry Venables character? And I said, well, you know, I think he's a good manager. I think he'll do a good job for you. And he looked at me, this bloke, right? And this is his words, not mine, word for word. He looked a little bit serious and he said, you know, if he doesn't get us to that World Cup, he'll be about as popular as a ginger-haired stepson. Fucking love that. Terry Venables. So you got the old England Euro 96 shirt, the one we lost in. So, what's your name?
Julie.
Julie. Did you watch Euro 96, Julie?
I did.
Do you remember the Spain game in Euro 96?
What?
That was the one when it went to penalties and Stuart Pearce got that penalty. Remember he'd missed one years before, I don't know if you knew that, but he'd missed one. And he took the penalty. Do you remember Stuart Pearce? He ran up to the crowd. You must remember this. And Stuart Pearce was going, fucking God! Fucking God! Fucking God! Fucking God! No. Well, I was in that section of crowd, right? We shit ourselves. He's going, fucking God! I was like, where are we going? We want to watch... Can we not watch these other penalties? Fucking God! He's putting our coats on. We're terrified. Oh, that reminds me, actually. Who was it, right? Who discovered the fact that if you tilt your head slightly and look very determined, the radio gets louder. You know when people say, hold on, I just want to hear this on the radio. I read a book, I'll tell you this, I read a book about Siamese twins. Fucking good book it was. Only about like $5.99. It was really interesting. The first ever Siamese twin, you know the ones joined together, you're with me, aren't you? They, the first one ever, apparently, on record, was two blokes actually from Siam, right? They were Siamese, and that's why we call them Siamese twins, right? Well, they say they were from Siam. There could have been two Japanese blokes fucking about. But they were called Chang and Eng, right? And they were joined at the hip, and they lived to be in the 60s. They both married separate women and both had kids of their own. Fucking weird, right? And I thought if I'd have been the older one, Chang, who got married first, what I'd have been doing, I'd have got the fiancé round one night to discuss the wedding. You know, I'd have been sitting there with Eng like this, you know. Our Eng, as he probably called it. And I'd have said, right then, love, that's the reception sorted and the invitations and the cake. Any ideas on a best man? I'm fucking joking, aren't you? Also, it says in the last chapter that there was once Siamese triplets born, and you could have, so there's no limit to the amount of children you could have that were joined together like that. He said you could even have Siamese sextuplets, 6 children joined together. And I thought that'd be fucking brilliant, wouldn't it? Because get them about 2 or 3 years old, every afternoon I'd be out in the garden bending free kicks round them. Come on in the house now. Come on in it. Sideways, sideways. You're killing them two fuckers on the end. I read Superman comics as well. Did I spit on you then? I'm sorry. I read Superman comics and I love that, you know. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but recently, big mistake in my opinion, they've changed Superman's uniform. You know, he always had the blue with the red cloak and stuff. Now he's in a sort of a white and blue sort of streak thing that comes up with like a headband and a lightning thing, and it's rubbish now, right? And I don't think people are going to recognise him anymore. He'll turn up at the scene of a crime, Superman, and there'll be coppers there going, yes, mate? I'm Superman. What's this, a fucking away strip? They won't recognise. This is a bloke they don't recognise when he puts fucking glasses on. How does that work, right? If I go around a mate's house and he says, Frank, have you read this in the paper? I'll probably reading glasses, and he doesn't go, who on earth? You come bursting in here, help, help! No, it's me, Frank, thank God, some bastard with glasses on, he come in here and grab the fucking paper. There's a bloke looking at me down here as if to say, Superman putting glasses on. Fucking on about there. I don't know if you're aware, there's a thing called observational comedy, right? Bit of an explanation. This is how it's supposed to work. Something happens to me, right, in my life, and I think, God, that's funny, right? And then I come on here and I tell you lot about it, and you think, that happens to us as well. And that's how it works. It's called the laughter of recognition, right? Now, on occasion, I have completely fucked this up. Because just because you do something, you think everyone else does it, and that's not necessarily true. For example, when I grew up in Albury, like a little kid, really little kid, me and my mates, whatever happened to us, we'd do a little soundtrack for him. So if my mum said, your dinner's on the table, I'd say, me dinner! Dun, 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 dun. If the dog come in, I'd say, Mum, the dog's coming in. But that was in Albury, as I found. People of Birmingham are giving me that look that says, were you a bit retarded? And that's the danger, you see. I had this other idea. I did this gig in London, and it's quite a posh club, and I thought I'll try a bit of new material tonight. I thought, now this is something, everybody does this. I'll do this, and they'll go, oh yeah, we do that, ha, it'll be great. So I went on, right, and I said, you know when you're having a bath or a shower and you get out there, I said, and you're drying your arse. I said, you know when you're really fucking drying your arse. I said, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it's a white towel. And they were going, And I said, you hold it up, don't you? Hey, you hold up that towel. I said, there's what I would call sometimes a slight blemish. I said, now we all do this, don't we? I knew by now probably we fucking didn't. And I was stuck with it. And I do this, and I still do it, and I'll confess it tonight, right? If I hold up the towel and there is a blemish, I will always go. Why do I do that? What else is it gonna be? I have never, ever in my life gone, Ovaltine. Thank God for that. I had a worse one, and this was something, again, I really did presume, well, every bloke, certainly, I really presumed did this. And I started talking about it one night on stage, just as if, taking it for granted, and those blokes going... They were shocked, right? And this is it. And this is what I used to... I don't do it anymore. But if I was going anywhere, there was any chance whatsoever of sexual activity, no matter how unlikely, I'd have a good bath and a scrub, which I think most people do, get as clean as you can. And then, as a bonus, I used to go over my genitals with a lemon-scented wet wipe. This is really true as well, honest. It wasn't a sexual thing, it was a sort of a courtesy thing, really. I thought this might be a nice surprise, perhaps, for some woman later on. She'd be there going, oh, God, this is gonna be... Oh. It's like opal fruits. And the other thing about it's actually quite refreshing. You, the blues fan there, man, you should just try it once. Honestly, it really gives you a bit of a zing. Whereas, I don't know about you, I find toilet duck a bit too abrasive. Do you know what I mean? It's like the advert says, it does get under that bridge, but there is a scratchiness which I don't like. Whereas, I made that up actually, mate. Don't ever try toilet duck, you'll fucking hurt yourself. But the lemon-scented wet wipe, try it once for me. They come in individual sachets from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Have a two-piece dinner, fill your pockets. Honestly, it's worth it. And the other brilliant thing, again, true, it dries to a sheen. You can see your fucking face in my helmet, I'm not kidding. The other problem with this observational comedy thing, this is a bit of a trickier thing, right, is that you're supposed to talk about, what you do in your everyday life. Now, if you've got a job that means you're on television and stuff, it's hard to talk about that without sounding like a total wanker. So, for example, if I'd have come swaggering on here tonight, in a bit of a designer suit and stuff, and I'd have said, God, dear, you know that feeling you get when you're ushering a woman out your hotel room, and she turns around, holds up the condom and says, you wouldn't sign this, would you? You'd hate me then, wouldn't you? You'd really, and quite rightly. Obviously I made that up, I didn't sign it anyway. Didn't want to get shit on me biro. Not only have I let you down, but I feel I've let myself down. Let's go back to Superman. Oh, there's something about Superman I didn't tell you, right? If anyone who ever read a Superman comic, right, in the sort of 70s will remember one advert which was in every one, and it was an advert for X-ray specs. It was a bloke with a big, thick pair of glasses on, looking at his hand like that and going... And he could see all the bones, all the skeleton in his hand because he'd got these X-ray specs on. And when I was a kid, I used to look at this advert and think, if I'd got X-ray specs, I wouldn't be looking at me fucking hand. If I'd got X-ray specs, after about 3 or 4 weeks, everybody would be able to see the bones in my hand. The fucking surface. Now we move into a very private area of life. Let's call it the solo road to sexual pleasure. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's something I'm not even sure if women ever do it, and I've always been too embarrassed to ask, right? But every fucking bloke in the world, except the one you're with tonight, does it, right? I personally, I'm not going to do a questionnaire on this. I started when I was about 13, right? And for a bloke, when you first start, I'm not kidding you, it's like Christmas Day every morning. I used to set the alarm for about 4. I thought, I'll get 9 in before I go to school. And then it happened. I was at school one day, I was 14 years old, I was talking to this kid. Now, it was one of these kids, there's one in every school. He knew more about sex than everyone else, and he used to come and give you little tidbits about things he'd earned, things he'd found out. And we were talking about the solo road to sexual pleasure. And he said, when you get old, he said, a woman will do that for you. I said, I don't think so. He said, I'm telling you. He said, my brother said his girlfriend, does it, he just lies back and she... I thought, fucking hell, that'll be fantastic. I'll be able to hold the whole magazine open. The bloody money I wasted on that music stand. So it became an obsession of mine, right? I got really wrapped up in mind how brilliant this would be, and I got to like 15, it hadn't happened, got to 16, didn't happen. A week before I was 17, I lost my virginity, and I thought, well, that was nice, but it won't be as good as when a woman does that personal thing for me. Got to 17, still didn't happen, 18, didn't happen, 19, 5 fucking years I've been waiting, building it up, and then finally, when I was 19 years old, at last, the woman said to me, I'll do that for you. I hadn't heard her come in. And I thought, now this is something now, 5 years, this is going to be fantastic. Because if it happens to me 1,000 times, this will always be the first time, right? It's going to be sexual heaven. I'm going to lie back and I'm going to enjoy this. Fantastic. And I laid back and she started, you're hurting me, get off it! What a fucking letdown that was, right? Because women are so fantastic at so many things, but I am sorry, I don't want to offend anyone, they are shit at that. I said to this woman, come here. I said, a couple of pointers, I said, before you go. And you're fucking going, madam. I was livid. I said a couple of things to bear in mind, look out for in future, to help you. Number 1, I'm crying. Bad, shouldn't be. Number 2, bright red. Shouldn't be. No, it shouldn't. I don't care about your fucking dog. Mine shouldn't be. Hopeless. Then you meet the woman at the other end of the scale, literally, right? This is the woman who holds it at the very base. Right down the bottom there. Waste the fucking time down there. Right down the bottom in a vice-like grip. She can be there for, an hour, easily. And what I really hate, what I hate more than anything, is after about 25 minutes, the fucking support arm comes out. I hate the support arm. Is that just to make me feel bad or what? Yes, I was with... Down the bottom there, it's a waste of fucking time. I was with a woman one night, she'd been there an hour and 20, no exaggeration. She said to me, she said, does that feel nice? I said, I thought you'd gone. Oh, she made me jump. Can I just offer a bit of advice tonight? Now, take it or leave it. Down the bottom there, waste of fucking time. Right? As far as sensitivity is concerned, the helmet is the centre of the universe. The rest is just something to fucking stand it on. It's like a plinth for the helmet, you know? Like a golf tee. And also, you don't need a fucking hoist like that. As the old song says, one finger, one thumb, keep moving. Gentle. It's no coincidence that it was a bloke who invented the OK sign. You know, you see blokes in the street saying, you alright, careful? Oh, I'm fucking brilliant, mate. Fucking brilliant. You alright, Susan? No, I'm tired. Now, there's women in here tonight, understandably, right, who are thinking, you arrogant bastard. If you had to do it for a woman, you would not know where to start. You're right, I'm hopeless. I am hopeless. I don't know the equipment well enough, you know. Whereas I know mine at the back of... Oh, never mind what I know it like. But anyway, if I am asked, I will have a go, you know. And I know I'm not good, and I'll explain that, but I will try, right? And I adopt a sort of a getting biro off the back of my hand approach, right? So the woman will lie back then, this is the middle section. And I'll say, I'll do my best for you on this one. You there yet? I'm hopeless, honestly. I have to try and go out with women who are sort of self-basting. I think the moral of this story is it's a solo activity. Like, look after yourself, let your partner look after themselves, and everyone's happy. I long for a society where you can walk down the road and say, you all right today, Susan? Oh, I'm fucking brilliant, thank you. There's enough problems, isn't there, in relationships now? I mean, it's terrible. I mean, the old blues fan down here now. You see, have you got a girlfriend?
Married.
Oh, you're married? Right. So you're a football fan as well? Oh, so that helps, you see, if there's two of you. You have to be. Do you feel that? You've been forced into it. You see, I think it can cause problems in a relationship. I lived with a woman who wasn't very much into football, but she used to try and join in a bit, you know. And one day I had the radio on, and the bloke on the radio said, and now sport and amazing news from West Bromwich Albion. And she said to me, oh, West Bromwich Albion. That's your team, isn't it? I wonder what they're doing on the radio. And then he said, and now weather, there's a warm front coming in. And the thing with a headbutt is that you've done it instinctively before you fucking... And I felt... She was out for 20 minutes. I felt really... Must have been 20 minutes because I'd finished packing her stuff by the time she... come round. Not that I'm condoning in any way domestic violence. It's obviously a terrible thing. There was a story in the papers, right? Hope it's not true, but there was a story. Geoffrey Boycott's girlfriend... You know Geoffrey Boycott, the English cricketer? His girlfriend, do you remember this in the tabloids? Claimed that he'd beaten her up quite badly, and terrible story. 7.5 hours it took him. Just little taps like that. Just get me eye in, love. So look, I'm gonna leave you now with one last story, and this is true. I know I keep saying this is true and this is true, but if you knew how much of this act was true, you'd probably phone the police. This is something that happened to me. I was invited to quite a posh do in London. It's a place called the Guildhall, famous place. And it was a dinner to raise money for the St John's Ambulance Brigade. So it was, it was a good cause. So I turned up there. And the guest of honour was the Duke of Edinburgh. Now, I know a lot of people are not that keen on the Duke of Edinburgh, and I'm not that, crazy. And I was in a line of people to shake hands with him. And as he was coming down the line, I was thinking, when they say, Mr Skinner, this is Prince Philip, I might say, yeah, Pons Philip, I'll call you. Right? But I never, right? They said, Mr Skinner, this is Prince Philip, and I said, it's very nice to meet you. And I got all excited. So anyway, we went into the hall. The Duke of Edinburgh, obviously, is on the top table, as you'd expect. I'm on a side table, but I can see him very clearly from where I'm sitting. So I'm watching him, thinking, fucking hell, Duke of Edinburgh. And then, it happened. A bloke at the end of the top table, he stood up with a little hammer, and he banged the hammer, and he said, "We will now all rise and sing together the national anthem." So we did. We all, including the Duke, we stood up and we sang. God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen. God save our Queen. And as we sang, I was watching the Duke's face, and I could tell by his expression, he was thinking, I fucked her. Smug he looked. As if to say, oh yeah, you can sing about her, but I've gone what I'd call a stage further than that. But what really got me, when it got to that bit, long to reign over us, he started sniggering. Look, you've been a really lovely crowd tonight, Friday night in Birmingham. You've been brilliant. Thanks ever so much for coming. Hopefully I'll see you again. Good night, God bless you. Cheers. That was lovely, warm, big... I've gone all sort of tingly emotional now. Now, these gigs, obviously, playing in Birmingham is special, and so now that was great. I haven't felt this emotional since they took Bullseye off. Oh, I miss that. Don't you miss that? It was the best show on fucking television. I mean, any show where you can watch two blokes from Tipton worrying about whether or not they can win a fucking speedboat. You can hear them saying stuff like, it's got to be worth 100 quid in scrap. My favourite bit, though, on Bullseye was Bully's Prize Board. Do you remember that? It was a bit with the red sections. If you got a dart in the red section, you won a prize. And before you're through, Jim Bowen, the host, he'd he'd tell you what was in each section with a little poem. Oh, I fucking love that, I tell you. Used to be stuff like, in one. If you like a nice tune, you'll be over the moon. With his Philips radio cassette player. The prize is always a slight come down from the build-up. And when I was a kid, it was my fucking ambition, just for 1 week, to do Police Prize Ball, right? Not to take over from Jim, obviously, the master. But to write the script, to get the presents in myself, you know, just organise the whole thing. You could have Jim saying all sorts, couldn't you? You could have things like, in two. If you keep it tight, you'll be up all night. With this leather cock ring. And 3. When she's under your spell, she'll do housework as well. It's a Filipino child prostitute. Yeah. Some clapped, some went, come on, we're going now. Here's a fucking true story. Now, this is something, I think, which... I've told you a few stories tonight, but this story sums me up more than any other story I'll tell you, as a man with a fucking problem. Right. What happened? I was filming, right? Oh, fucking were you? Yes. In Milan. Right, for Channel 4. So, there was me and a sound man and a cameraman and a lot of Italian passers-by who just happened to be there. And we heard gunfire. Now, this story was in the paper, so you might have read the story, but you won't know the details about it, right? We looked down this street we was in. There were 2 Italian coppers running up the road, not firing pistols, but holding them in the air and going, right? In Italian, obviously. Not just going... Otherwise, the Italian passers-by would have gone, are you a bit retarded? But anyway, we looked up. A van screeched to a halt at the end of the street, right? And there was a bloke hanging out the window with a fucking machine gun. And what had happened was that he'd done an arm raid on a jewellery shop in Milan. The police had cordoned him in and he'd panicked and he just started firing down this street. We were all in, at anybody. The bullets was hitting the front of the fucking shops and I thought, this is it now. This is the end, right? I don't know if you've ever been shot at, anybody. Someone in from Allen Rock, did you say? But it's really terrifying. You're running like, I just ran in a panic and you're thinking, like, this could be the last thing I ever see. I'll never see my family again, my friends. Maybe there isn't a God and I'll die and I'll rot and the worms will eat me and that's it. It's all going to end now like that. And I'm running along and all that's going through my mind, right? And this Italian woman overtook me. Quite an attractive woman, you know, short dress. And as she ran past, I remember quite vividly thinking, fucking hell, she's all right. In the very jaws of death, though. And people say that's a bit sexy. It's not sexy, it's a fucking illness, is what it is, right? It is an illness. It's like breastfeeding, Frank. I have a real problem with breastfeeding, right? Not me doing it, obviously. But now in the 90s, and this is a brilliant thing, I think, women feel sort of independent, self-assured, confident enough to be able to breastfeed in public. Great, I really respect that, but I get a bit awkward with it myself, right? I was in London, there was a woman I saw breastfeeding a kid in the fucking park, right? In the fucking park. And I stopped and I said, good on you for brilliant fucking, well, I've got me knob out, actually. As a sort of a sign of solidarity. I said, I'm with you, sister, on this one. She looked a bit puzzled, but not... wasn't upset. The other problem I have, if you're a 90s man, which I try to be, you're supposed to be able to talk to a woman who's breastfeeding as if, like, maybe you hadn't even noticed. I can't fucking do that, right? I had to look them straight in the eye like this. I daren't look anywhere else on the planet, right? And I just talk rubbish. I'm saying, yeah, the weather... Hasn't the weather been... the weather just... the fucking weather on that. The weather, you know the weather, the weather. It's like there's two pieces of string, right, from my eyes down to a nipple, pulling my head forward. I can feel it in my neck muscles. I'm thinking I'm not going to look. I must not look down there. What a lovely baby. When's he going to move his fucking head? I got a reputation in Albury, like with my mates' girlfriends and wives. He used to say, oh, he loves kids, you know. He loves... When I first had our Darren, he was round every day. Fucking was as well, I'm telling you. I'd be going, oh, little Darren, he lovely little dad. He's hungry, you know. No, I've just fed him, actually. Oh, now he's hungry, though. He's fucking starving. No, I've just fed him. He can't... Look, get your tits out, I'll kill him. Terrible. In 4. From Ho Chi Minh to Minh Ho Chin. It's a video of Vietnamese war atrocities. Now, we all do things in our life that we think are big and clever at the time, but when we look back, we feel a bit embarrassed and a bit ashamed and a bit stupid about it. Such a thing, right, happened to me about 15, 16 months ago. What happened was I had a fling, it was no more than that really, 3 or 4 weeks, with a 16-year-old girl. No. Now, I'm embarrassed about it. I'm not telling you to brag, really. I mean, looking back now, it was just some male vanity, pathetic thing, you know. And at first there's something exciting about fucking someone who doesn't remember the Ninja Turtles. But you can't build a relationship on that, can you? And it's a hopeless imbalance. I mean, what's the sexual peak for a woman? What age is that supposed to be? Do you know? 35. Right. What is it for a bloke? 19. Better get a fucking move on, Lee, eh? 35 and 90. So this relation of mine was hopelessly imbalanced. It's terrible. So if with a bloke, when they measure a bloke's sexual peak, that's when he can have sex over and over and over again, I presume. The most. That's his peak. Is that right? So how do they measure it how do they measure a woman's sexual peak? Now is she some sort of slopping pail? Wish I hadn't said that. Anyway, look, I had the fling, right? I remember the first night we spent together, for the first time I stood naked before her, right? And I stood there like this. Why I'd extended one toe, I will never know, but it felt right. And she walked around looking at me and her, and she said, I always remember, 16 years old, remember, she said to me, you're like a tiger. And I thought, fucking yes. Right, I know it's pathetic, but I was really chuffed, you know, till I realised she was on about the stretch marks on my arse. Anyway, we carried on, right, and we had some things. She was from Albury, by the way, so we had that in common, and a few other things we both liked, but generally the age thing was a big problem, you know. And then it happened. I went out one day and I left her in the flat and I was gone for no more than a couple of hours. When I got back, she had broken my 1966 England World Cup mug. I was very upset. It's bad enough if a girlfriend breaks your 66 World Cup mug, but when she does it fucking skipping. So she could see, obviously being so young, she hadn't really got the significance, but she could see I was very upset about it. She said, oh, well, sorry, I'll do anything to make it up to you, anything. I said, will you? She said, yeah. I said, what? Bourneville Boulevard? No, she said, but she said, I'll do oral sex. 16? I hadn't fucking heard of it when I was 16. I said, well, it won't mend the mug, will it? But it won't do any harm. But what really put me off, right? She said, blowjob. Dun, 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 dun. No, but she did do it though, and you'd think it would be fantastic, like sexual heaven, but in fact it was one of the worst moments of my life. Because after about, no more than about 20 seconds or so, you know, after she started, she started crying. And I felt so, I thought this young girl, I thought, a child in many ways. And I've corrupted her with me filthy vileness. I was really I let go of her hair and everything. I didn't want to know. And I felt so low and so bad. And then I realised she wasn't upset at all. It was the fucking lemon was coming up. I'll tell you something though, this is a terrible thing, but I remember her saying to me quite clearly, she said, you're not going to put me in your act, are you? And I said, oh no. I said, never. I said, if I told them how old you were, they'd bloody boo me off stage, you know. She said, you could always add a couple of years on. It was a joke. That was a joke. That was a joke. In 5, you'll drown in a flood of shit, spunk and blood. With this internet guide to gay porn. Anyway, one last story. This again is true, right? And it involves a mate of mine. Some of you may know, little Jewish bloke, glasses, called David Baddiel, right? Now, me and Dave, we've been through a few, tough times together. He is, as you may know, he's a Chelsea supporter. And I remember when Matthew Harding died, the Chelsea director. Thanks, mate. Fucking sensitive kid. Was it Ken Bates in the audience? It was a terrible thing, right, for Chelsea fans. And Dave was very upset. And the following weekend, Chelsea were playing at home, and it was a very emotional game, as you can imagine. And I went up to the Albion, right? So when I got back that Saturday night, he was still upset. And he said to me, oh, it's terrible. He said, did they have a minute's silence at West Brom? I said, nah, just the usual hour and a half. But me and about 8 mates went up Chelsea last February, and Bill Clinton was fucking furious. She loved it. She said to me, she said, for an ugly bird, this is a bit of a treat. I said, that's very broad-minded of you, Chelsea. And post-feminist in a lot of ways. Anyway, me and Dave, right, we had an invitation. This has been just over a year ago. We were invited to a film premiere. Oh, fucking weird. Yes. And like I say, I'll leave you with this story, because I know you've got pubs to go to and things. Now, so, the film, which is one you might know, is called Loch Ness. Seen Loch Ness, anybody? Yeah, what do you think?
Crap.
It is crap, yeah. Terrible film, but as Dave said, it's free. So we went, right, and the film company, they flew us up to Inverness, because as you may know, that's where Loch Ness is, near there, and so that's where the film premiere was. And it was a bit of a celebrity bash. Annika Rice was there. Lovely. And Nicky Clark, the celebrity hairdresser. Bit of a punt, but well known. So we got up, we saw the film, which was not good, right? And then we had a very nice meal after that. And then that night there was a big posh do and a dance, and we was having a great time. I'd put a suit and tie on, I'd fucking gone for it, right? And I was talking to this attractive woman, and we're getting on well. I thought, I'm having a fantastic time here. Then I saw Dave walking across the dance floor, right, doing this. Now, I'd lived with him for 6 years, I knew what that meant, right? He came over and he said, I could do with the shit. Why do men do that? I could do with the shit, I'll just flatten it out a bit. Do a sort of a discus type shit. So I said, why are you telling me this, right? And he said, well, the thing, now, this is the crux of the story. He said, the thing here, he says, is that the toilets are like individual cubicles. You go in, you lock the door, that's it. He said, now, there's someone in the men's. He said, I can't wait, I need to go in the women's, but I want you to come and watch. I don't want anyone to see me coming out of there, right? I said, right, come on. Come on. So we went to the toilet together. Now, I know there's been rumours. But to be honest, if I was going to fuck a bloke, he wouldn't look like David the Dean. And also, imagine if Dave was giving me a blowjob one day and I was there saying, that's it, Dave, fucking brilliant, and accidentally knocked his glasses off. And when I thought, who on earth? Help Dave, there's some Asian bloke giving me a blowjob. Anyway, we walked down, right, to the men's toilets, right? We didn't walk like this, I don't know why I'm doing it now. But we got to the men's toilets and he was right, there was someone in there, it was locked. But by now, there was someone in the women's toilets, that was locked as well. Now, Dave was in a bit of a panic. He was saying, I can't, wait. The circles were getting faster, anyone could see that. I said, just calm down. I said, there's got to be another toilet here. So I went down and round the corner, and there was a disabled toilet, just one, but it was empty. So I said, Dad, there's a disabled toilet. He said, oh, thank God. He put down his pint of lager, and he went in, right? So I thought, no need to keep watch, you'll be all right in there. So I walked back up the corridor. Now, as I walked up the corridor, I had this idea. Now, this doesn't show me in a very good light. But I didn't intend it for public performance, it was just a mate messing about, right? So don't judge me too harshly. So what I did, I tiptoed back down the corridor like this, right? To the disabled toilet. And I stood outside in silence for about a minute and a half till I knew Dave was good and settled. And then, very gently, I put my hand on the door handle, right? And, as I say, don't judge me too harsh. Didn't mean any harm. But what I did was I went... Now, some might say bad taste, right? But as I say, I didn't intend it for public performance. It was just like a mate messing about, you know, so I didn't mean, and it fucking worked, a treat, right? I could sense tension coming out the cubicle. I knew Dave was in there going... And I started really hammering it up. I was going... Too loud, though, too fucking loud. This woman come round the corner. Big, tall Scottish woman, blue uniform, worked at the place. She looked at me and she said, what's going on? I am not kidding you. I'm not a man who gets easily embarrassed, but I have never felt more embarrassed in my life. And it could have been worse. It could have been fucking worse, right? Because I just had this other idea. You know when I said that Dave put down his pint of lager before he went into the... Well, I thought it'd be a bit of a laugh, you know, to start really going... And then tip the lager under the door. I was ever so glad I hadn't started doing that when this woman come though. And as I say, she looked at me and said, what's going on? And I confess this now, and God help me for this, but I actually toyed with the idea of going... But I would have felt terrible. Couldn't have lived with me. Besides, I promised Annika a dance later on right now. If I'd been danced with Annika and this woman had gone past, I'd have to have gone... Annika would have been quite startled, I imagine. So she said again, what's going on? And, you know, when you're a comedian, you think, you know, you've got a bit of a fancy answer for everything, and of course, it's not true. And I was there, I was caught red-handed, and I stood there, and she said, what's going on? And I said, I was just trying to get me mate to hurry up a bit. Okay, let me get this right then. I'm the bloke, right, who, when his disabled friend goes to the toilet, I stand outside, rattling the door handle and saying, come on, what's the fucking matter with you? But not only that, but so he understands me. By way of translation, really, I do it in a bit of a mongy voice. I was in the wrong, I had no defence, and she was angry, and quite rightly, and it would have been terrible. But the situation was diffused somewhat by the very loud laughter that was starting to come from inside the cubicle. Look, you have been a brilliant crowd tonight. Thanks ever so much for coming. Good luck to you and your teams, as long as they don't finish as high as mine. I don't mind where they finish. Good night, God bless you. Cheers, see ya.